Welcome.
Oh, what a jam!
Welcome.
I never get sick of that one.
Happy Friday,
Naoto.
Happy Friday, Nathan.
How you doing?
Good. I feel pretty good after finishing the subtitling for Masashi's interview.
Yeah, you've been going nonstop on that, hey?
It's hard. It's not it's not the easiest task.
I've done some subtitling. It sucks, even when you have a computer helping you. So I can't imagine.
Yeah, it's like a little project. I'm glad that it got done. Only thing I don't like is that the one that I was using didn't have a spelling checks.
Oh no.
So hey Nathan, you are the spelling check.
Yeah, I'll be your man. Well, that's awesome work. For those of you that don't know, if the beans haven't been spilled yet, Naoto did a live interview with Masashi-san. God, it must have been a couple weeks ago now. Yeah. He's been diligently editing and subtitling it, so we'll have a more condensed version of that interview soon, right in time for Small Makers Month in July.
Yeah, it became pretty small. Like we did 2-hour interview. I kind of skipped like quite a few things, but the condensed into about 20 minutes. So
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So some news, like some upcoming event that we would like to announce. One of which is that next month we're planning on doing this feature month for the small makers who can't produce that many at the same time. We can't really keep their knives in stock, but we like to feature them. We like to talk about them. So we'll have so-called Small Makers Month starting the 12th of the July.
Yep.
What's going to happen is that I will interview, especially next week or two. I will interview this event. I will interview this 3 blacksmith at the same time. Manaka-san from Saitama, the Miyazaki-san from the Nagasaki Goto Island, and Yoshizawa-san from Nigara. So these 3, I'll have all of them on the same screen. I'll ask the same questions. They'll write answers. They'll use the little flipboard type of stuff to answer, and they'll add the answers to whatever they want to add.
So it's like a game show kind of thing.
I try to, right? Game show, yeah. And I'll film that. It's going to be recorded. Everything is going to be recorded. I will edit it, and there is going to be hoping to get that done, release them in the mid-July.
Cool.
So
I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I know. I'm also planning on doing actually a recorded version interview of the Maruyama-san, who is the head sharpener of the so-called Hado Sakai. It's the it used to be called Ol Sakai. Yep. Now it's Hado Sakai.
The artist formerly known as Ol Sakai.
Yeah. So I'm going to interview him pretty in this kind of sense, but it'll be hopefully it'll be interesting.
Yeah, for those of you that maybe didn't catch it last year, I think it was in August, was our first ever Small Makers Month. And it's just something we do in the summer for a couple of reasons. I mean, summer is kind of a slow time where there's no holidays going on, there's no sales. So it's something fun for us to do that keeps us busy in the summer. But really, it's a chance for us to focus in a little more on as we call them, small makers. So people that make really incredible knives that we'd love to carry full time, but they just don't have the capacity to supply our stores full time. And so it's a chance for us to kind of highlight them and just kind of tell their stories and talk about them on our social media and our blog and do some videos and interviews with them. And, in a way that we don't get to do during the garage sale when we have lots of small makers knives, but it's just kind of a big blast all in one go. So I'm really excited. Cheers. Yeah. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. And also, I'm drinking a beer from the establishment. Well, those of you who haven't watched our third episode of the Sharp Knives Rock aired on Monday. We did have a this female brewer from this company called Establishment Brewing Company here in Calgary. We did a little bit of tasting test, and also at the dish pit, we dug a little bit more deeper into what's going on in the industry.
Yeah,
So
some of the social issues going on, and Natasha's doing a great job of
she,
really highlighting those and spearheading movement forward, which is
yeah.
awesome.
So if you haven't checked it out. It's already up on our YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. I have to remember to like our videos as well because Instagram it's so easy to like it because you just double click it.
Yeah.
YouTube you have to wait until the ad's done and you have to click on it.
You gotta wait like 5 or 10 seconds.
So,
but no, it was really cool having Natasha in the studio, and you did an awesome job of interviewing her. And I mean, she also brought us amazing beer, which was just very,
right?
very nice of her.
It's great.
Well, we got lots of the regulars tuning in. We've got Gary Horn says, "Good evening, gentlemen." Our buddy Craig on the East Coast says, "Hey, folks. Fighting Usyk is here. Sean Buckle is here from his local DMV. I guess you must be watching this while you're stuck in line." And of course, our good buddy James Wang. And hello to everybody else that's tuning in. It's good to see everyone.
Thanks for tuning in. And some good news. The Alberta government, our healthcare opened up the second dose vaccination for the anyone who vaccinated the first shot in last 28 days.
Yeah. It's been 29 days for me, so I'm going to book right after this.
You know what? I have to wait until this Sunday,
that's okay. It's probably good for you to wait for a little while. I jumped online before this video thinking I could book in, and there were only 97,000 people in line ahead of me. So I might just kind of hang out watching that number count down tonight.
Yeah.
So this Friday's episode of That's the Wrong Button. What am I doing? This episode of Naoto's Nerdy Power Hour is Stump the Wizard. I wanted to see if folks could bring their hardest questions for Naoto.
I'm sure you have some lineup already, right?
There were some good ones, yeah. So drop your questions as always in the comments, and feel free to ask general sharpening questions. But the real goal today is to find that, dig into the toughest nuggets of gold of knowledge from Naoto's brain, and try to see if he can answer these questions. So I put out a call on the Discord and on Instagram, and we've got probably 15 or 20 questions or so queued up that will kind of sprinkle in here. But if you guys pop questions in the chat, we'll answer them there as well. And don't feel like just because you can't think of the hardest question ever, it's not a good question. And you don't have to ask questions about sharpening. They can be
any questions.
Yeah. Steel, Japanese food, maybe not so much Naoto's private life, but anything else is in bounds. And you're going to work on a knife today, right?
I'm going to work on this particular knife that we're actually sent in for sharpening. This Masakagi Mizu. See if it focuses.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of does. Kind of not.
A little bit.
It kind of focuses on my fingers.
So you're sharpening that guy up today.
So this guy is tough. Oh, here. It kind of. So this has this really good condition. There is no chips or anything like that, right?
Yep.
But I immediately noticed that this bevel has very interesting profile to it. So I started sharpening on the one of the stones that I always use to check the bevel or to check the condition of the knife.
Right.
This, if you can actually make this bigger as well.
Yeah. Let's take a look at that.
So here is that the other side I started working on. You see here. Okay. I put this bevel flat on that stone. Yep. What had happened is that this part has not touched on the stone, which often it's because it's concave, but it had touched quite a bit higher point above the edge, as well as just above below this line right here.
Oh, weird.
As well, like here, you can actually see them better.
Mm-hmm.
Here, where my index finger is, you see a little dot type kind of stuff?
Yeah, what is that?
It is a low spot. It's a dot low spot.
Huh.
dotted low spot, so it doesn't touch on the stone here. Also, there is another one right here at the edge.
Oh yeah.
So it's not. I mean, it means it's very whatchamacallit, inexpensive handmade knife. But this has a little bit more problems than the regular Mizu see. So I would like to kind of point out this how I sharpen something like this is slightly different. Instead of, if I were to sharpen, try to work on the low spots and everything, it's going to take. You have to remove a lot of steel off. So I'm just gonna keep as is, trying to take all the low spots though. Like this dot here is a low spot.
Yeah.
This right here is a low spot as well.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to take this out, but other than that, I'm not gonna do much. But in order to test if there's any low spot, make sure the stone is super flat and just work on like this. You don't have to do like much. Then you can see where it touches, where it's not. Right?
Yeah, makes sense.
So yeah, this is kind of interesting, unique. So the beveling here on this guy here is that it's low here, and actually comes back a little bit fatter at where my tip of my index finger is.
Yep.
And comes back down. So it's kind of like this.
Oh, weird. Yeah, it's like an hourglass kind of shape.
Like on the bevel. So I'll work a little bit more on this.
Well, I asked because we're doing Stump the Wizard today and we're answering tough questions. I asked Naoto if he could bring a tough knife to sharpen. So that's what we're doing today.
Yeah, this is a little bit more tougher than the regular. Yeah.
While you work on that guy, let's get into the comments and questions here.
So
real quick, Fighting Usyk, Mrs. Usyk approves of my shirt. If she has any opinions on what color of shirts I should buy, I need to upgrade my wardrobe of floral shirts. So I'm going to I'm going to go shopping probably this weekend. So just leave color suggestions in the comments. All right, first question. I'm gonna softball you a few easy ones to get you warmed up. I don't want to go too hard too quick. So this first one comes from Sean Coots in our Ottawa store, and he says, "Would you rather fight 100 duck-sized Kevin Kents or one Kevin Kent-sized duck?" I was cracking up reading that as soon as it popped up.
I'll do just one Kevin Kent-sized duck.
All right.
Yeah, because 100 duck-sized Kevin doesn't. It will add up to like that huge.
Hey, Kevin's pretty sneaky, so I feel like he would pull some stuff on you. The duck, ducks are nice, but they're kind of dumb, so they would just. Yeah. You can fight that a lot more easily. I'm with you on that. Okay, well, let's move into some of the questions that folks asked during the week, because like I said, I put the question out to everyone on our Discord. If you haven't joined our Discord, check the link at the bottom of the description and join up and hang out and chat with us. Music, food, sharpening, all sorts of stuff. And folks came through big time. We also had some great questions on Instagram. So let's start with one that's a little on the easier side. Let's take a look. We had a couple of questions about chipped heels.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna do a two-part question from two different viewers. First of all, Fighting Usyk asked, we see a lot of videos and discussions about fixing broken tips, chipped edges, but what about chipped heels? Would you round it off? Would you angle it, or would you do something else?
When I see the chipped heel, often say when we get I usually round it off. It just really to in order to keep that the width of the knife itself, because if it's chipped like even like 2 millimeters, you have to, in order to make the profile back all the way, you have to remove a lot more steel than you would normally do. And so I usually just either round it off but I don't go. Yeah, so
You don't bring the edge back.
No.
Okay.
It
Yeah,
really
that makes sense.
But yeah, often I usually ask the customer too, right? What would you like us to do?
Okay. Cool.
Oftentimes it's because losing millimeter or two just because you tap the heel. Losing millimeter or two means basically you lose like 5 years of knife. Like probably not that many, but a couple years of knife, right? So I usually say, do this. How about do this? Just grind or just round that heel off, so that once you keep bringing your knife in, so one day you get the heel back.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Now, I've got to follow up because I'm going to mispronounce this, but Sven, I believe, on also on Discord, had a similar question, which is kind of a follow up. How would you go about fixing a large chip at the bottom of the heel, 3 to 4 millimeters, and keep as much of the profile as possible? Would you move the heel forwards, like bring that whole line on the choil forwards, or grind the entire bevel up past the chip?
What I try to do, what I try not to do, I guess what I try not to do is to carve down at the heel. Like I don't want to make the ramp at the heel. So when
you don't want to stop it from contacting the board.
It makes the handle actually touches on the cutting board if I do that, right? So I try to keep this part as flat as possible. If you say lose this much. If say lose this much, like where my finger is here, I may just round it off because that's a lot of steel to lose if I were to just bring the edge just straight, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Case by case, but again, that's something that I would avoid because I don't want to have this comes back like this. Unless it's asked, of course, right?
Yeah, right. That makes sense.
There's one knife that came in for the repair sharpening, and basically it got into the car accident, and it was like,
oh man, those were in rough shape. Luckily, the customer was okay, but
yeah. So it was missing pretty much like this much, where. So I decided to, and with the customer's consent as well, but from here and just grind it up like this.
And it's really only in extreme scenarios where you would.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Just so everybody knows, it wasn't the knife that was driving.
No,
that's not legal. It was a person driving. They got into a car accident. The knives got screwed up. But Naoto did an amazing job of refurbishing them. You can check them out on his Instagram a couple months ago. They're pretty insane.
It was it was a couple months ago. It was basically the car behind just gonna smash.
Yeah, they got rear-ended, and so the trunk where the knives were got especially screwed up. Yeah. He sent me a message on Instagram with some pictures, and I kind of just once I picked my jaw up off the floor, I said, okay, you should probably email this guy Naoto first, see if he thinks he can fix them, and then send them in with our mail-in service.
Yeah.
Not really a hard question. Sean's just curious what stone you're using. He says it looks buttery smooth.
Oh, this one here is the Kensho Itadaki 1000. 1000, I use it again as to check if there's low spots or high spots. That was my first stone, so I just kept going. But that stone kind of told me or showed me where the low spots were. So
cool. I've heard you say that the name of that stone so many times. I should know by now. I feel like if you're going to get a tattoo, your tattoo should be Kensho Itadaki 1000.
Who is it? The Fujiwara Masashi Fujiwara-san will be happy to see that. Then.
Right, because that's his jam. So Gary's got a question here. Here's one of our live questions. He says, and this is more of like a DIY question, which I think is good. Can you buff out scratches on a Shun Classic with a Scotch Brite belt without destroying the Damascus looking finish?
Um, so just tell you how those Damascus finish were exposed, I guess, to show is that they go through various different wheels and buffing wheels to get to almost like a mirror polished on the side. Then they put it in this machine called sandblast. They spray the sand on the side so that the softer steel gets scratched and the harder steel remains. It doesn't get scratched, right? So
Right.
so that it kind of that pops that the steel up. It's really depends on how coarse and often how we try to bring. So you have to kind of go quite a bit high to get the high polish until you don't really see the Damascus look. Then you use the certain certain things like a superhero polishing powders to get the Damascus finish back. Oh,
Yeah. Okay.
to order these.
So you can't do it with like conventional hardware store materials.
There maybe I
Sure.
haven't tried, but that's how they bring the pops that the Damascus finish on.
Yeah.
So polish it up, then put it back.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sean Buckle, who's currently at the DMV, said, would those low spots on the bevel, the one you're sharpening right now, be caused mostly from when the knife was being hammered out?
It's mostly from the sharpening. Mostly from sharpening. Often the knife makers, knife sharpeners use the wheel like this.
Yep.
Wheel, much bigger version, and they go right. When you're not experienced, or sometimes you tilt, accidentally tilt it, edge of the stone can dig in a little bit deeper.
Right.
I would assume that the low spots just along the it's all gone, but this spot still right here.
Yeah.
Is probably done by tiny angling.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That would happen when I was learning how to use the wheel at a Knifewear, learning to sharpen. I'd have little spots where the corner of the stone would catch, because that's one of the big challenges of learning how to use like a sharpening wheel is learning to keep your stone parallel to the wheel.
Yeah.
And yeah, you get little gouges sometimes if you're not careful.
Yeah.
Okay, so that makes sense.
Definitely.
So for anyone that's just joined us, this is our Stump the Wizard episode of Naoto's Nerdy Power Hour. So the goal or the idea here is you ask your toughest questions in the comments and try to stump Naoto. See if you can find a challenging question for him about sharpening or knives or steel or Japanese food or anything else you think he might have a lot of knowledge on, and see if you can stump him.
Yeah.
See if you can ask a question he doesn't have an answer for.
Food question is going to be fun.
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to see some food questions in the comments.
I don't know if there's any, but
Gary Horn says, "How do they go, Naoto?" I think he's referring to the sound effect you made when you were grinding. It sounded a lot like your motorcycle sound effect. Okay, let's grab another question here. Like I said, we had a bunch queued up from viewers previously.
Yeah.
All right, let's do our first tough one. This is from our buddy Blank Blank, who had came through with like 8 questions, and this is one of the tougher ones.
Okay.
But I feel like it's not too tough for you.
Okay.
So he's got it. This is a 2-part. We're going to start with the easier part, and we're going to see if this is the first one that stumps you up.
Okay.
So Blank Blank asks, what is the hardest carbide found in knife steels?
I don't know the hardness of the carbides actually. Not each individual carbides. because basically what you're doing with the sharpening stone here is you're grinding the matrix or the base steel rather than the carbides, right? You're not really grinding off carbides. Often those carbides can be hotter than the abrasives on those stones, right?
Yeah.
So it's
If you were to guess.
steel carbides are quite hard. Like steel carbides, like just the hardness itself. It's both the cementite is actually quite hard as well. It can like it's like they use the cementite. It's the
Wow.
cementite is quite hard. I know the chromium carbides are quite hard as well. But
so, according to Blank, who tends to do a lot of research into this kind of stuff, the hardest one is tungsten carbide.
Oh, the tungsten. Yeah. Right. Makes sense.
I have no idea if that's correct, but I'm going to assume so.
Makes sense. But the not many Japanese knife steel uses tungsten in it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that's
It's more. Is that more of an American steel kind of thing?
It's the Japanese carbon steel. They are a little bit more pure, and tungsten. It's really light material, like in terms of metal.
Yeah.
But they don't usually use tungsten for the steel types, like not in there. But I've seen some tungsten knives as well, or just almost like pure tungsten, like tungsten knife for in Japan, and they're pretty light.
So Patrick Lacasse made the comment that is this true? Algami Super has tungsten in it?
Oh, it's a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. Is that for hardness? Is it for like stain resistance?
Wear resistance.
Wear resistance. Okay. Okay, cool. And Fighting Usyk has kind of a follow-up to that and says it's correct, but there's very little tungsten carbide in knife steel. So therefore, after that would be vanadium carbides. Interesting. So for dum-dums like me that don't know a lot about knife steel, can you remind me what a carbide is in steel?
Carbide is basically like full steel. Steel is this Fe, like it's an element, iron, and a carbon, right? That's steel. In order to be in like steel, Japanese knives usually not Japanese knife steel usually has about 1.6% to some of the harder ones are almost as high as 3%. Not necessarily it's true, but the generally speaking, more carbon means it's a bit hotter. Anything over 3% becomes a so-called cast iron. But when you look at how the steel transforms from one to another, when they harden, there are two different things going on. Okay, the one is so-called the transformation from a so-called the ferrite, the one form of steel, into martensite. There's the
right.
It becomes harder, but the crystal structure changes. But this structural change is more of the crystal structure rather than a chemical bonding. So chemical bonding is like you have this oxygen and you have hydrogen, and if you burn it, you get a water, which is H2O, right?
Yeah.
That's the chemical bonding change. Where steel is it's still all the iron, but they change the how they form each other, how they crystallize.
Yeah. Okay.
And as they become a harder, or the martensite form, they make it slightly bigger so that the carbon can go in. Like into those steels.
Like kind of weave itself into the structure.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. It's kind of like how salt can be in different kind of crystal forms. Like you have like Maldon salt that's got those little like forms those perfect little pyramids, and you have like
or diamond. Like if you look at a diamond and versus pure charcoal, it's like carbon, but structure is like different, right?
Okay, cool.
But the so it's still iron with the steel inside. Okay, that's the martensite. But irons, those that the FEs, they can only contain up to 0.6% of carbon in the steels. So all the leftovers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some leftovers try to connect with some other elements in the steel. So the carbides are like a chemical reaction, chemical bonding, atomic bonding between the some other elements. So it's the like when I learned in Japan, it's like it's like arm you have, right? The old elements of arms.
Yeah.
And you bond with the other elements.
Yeah, they've got available. I mean, I was in chemistry a lot in high school. They've got available electrons, so they can kind of like it's like Velcro almost. They kind of like lock into each other.
Exactly. So the carbides are like that.
Oh, okay. That I can understand.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So
thanks, man. I appreciate that's now explained in the form I can understand.
Yeah. The chromium oxide, vanadium oxide, the carbides are the ones that are connected with the carbon.
Okay, cool. Hey, our buddy Damon Spector just joined. Don't worry, Damon, I haven't asked your question yet. And our buddy D Hop 310 joined recently as well. If either of you guys have questions to pop in the comments for Naoto about knives and sharpening, but also about Japanese food, and if you want to know about Japanese metal, Naoto's very knowledgeable on that subject as well. Pop your questions in the comments. Craig asked a good one. He said, this isn't a hard question, a stump question, but I'm curious what Naoto's favorite dish is to eat, specifically Japanese dish is to eat, and why.
I love sushi. Mm-hmm. Like homemade sushi in Japan. It's good here.
For us Westerners, are we talking about nigiri? Are we talking about like maki? Like
in Japan, if you actually say sushi in Japanese, most people think it's nigiri. Nigiri has certain forms that require certain skills. It's not something that we do cook at home, although I try to make them, but it's like I remember. And it's not just only the sushi rice and fish. There are a lot more art to it, and it's like very subtle art, I guess. It's the skill and how they prepare. It's all in there. So I love sushi. Good piece of fish and sushi. Cool. Yeah, the west and east in Japanese West, like the Kansai area and Kanto area where the Tokyo is has slightly different, say, styles of sushi. Yep. In the Tokyo area, it's called edomae. Edomae is like, because back then the sushi was, the fresh fish was not really a thing, right? Because there was no refrigerator and anything like that.
Yeah, it was fresh if you caught it an hour ago. Otherwise,
so edomae sushi is all about how you prepare your fish. Some of them are cooked, some of them are vinaigrette, some of them are vinegar, some of them are so all about those, right? So the edomae sushi or the Edo style sushi, you have to do some, not only just to cut and traditionally not only just cut to prepare. It's you have to do some work before that. Where West Kansai area, where the fishery was a little bit more in abundance, it's they basically did a little bit more simple, like cut and very fresh. Although here's a little bit of trivia: sushi originated in the West area, and sushi was not about fresh fish. Sushi was a preserved fish.
That's how it started, right? It was treating the fish with vinegar and salt and
no, just the salt.
Oh, really?
If you leave the so it's got the fish,
Yep.
salt, rice, leave,
Huh.
and
And it's
gets
preserved with the rice.
and it's gets it's fermentation.
Huh. Cool.
Yeah. Fermentation creates a little bit sour taste.
Okay, so this is my question.
Yeah.
Have you right? It would create more of that lactic vinegar taste.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you then, or does anybody in Japan make like traditional sushi? Like, do they make it the way it was prepared?
Yeah.
Really?
If you go to the Shiga prefecture, they have so-called funazushi, which is this carp, almost like carpish, like, freshwater fish.
Yeah.
They make that. Also, the where I'm from, Wakayama, is called narezushi, which we use the mackerel with the rice. Put the rice in the belly and salt them and leave them.
Oh,
Yeah,
very cool.
it's very distinct. It's like it's like cheese.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah. Yeah. You're kind of learning to appreciate the age and the more interesting flavors that
It's
develop.
very stinky cheese that it's like love or like hate kind of relationship.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm gonna pop one in from Corey Phillips. Said he can't hang out for too long, so I'll just ask this right now. So this is I think really interesting because there's everybody on the internet has an opinion. Says I got grief online recently for mentioning differential sharpening, and I assume he means what we talk about a lot, which is sharpening different grits on either side of the knife.
Yeah.
And apparently somebody told him you can't have a bi-apex edge, and the low grit would just take over the way it cuts. What do you think about that?
You can't buy Apex. The low grit wouldn't just take over. Yeah, that's maybe it's it's what I understand and how I think it's going to happen is that what I tried to make it by Apex, the differential sharpening is that I don't like some people. This some people do. Some people go all the way up to very fine, then come down on one side with 1000, and I think that doesn't work. You know what I mean? Like if you sharpen the edge on both sides to 8000 and try to come back down to 1000 to sweep one side.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that works. I think it works this way. You sharpen the both sides with 1000 or whatever the grits. It's not super coarse, like 1000 to 2000.
Yep.
Right. Then you just work on the one side with the finer stone.
Mm-hmm.
What will probably happen, my brain, is that the 1000 grit you make, say for example, this edge.
Yeah.
Right. And 8000, you don't work on the very deep valleys. You only work on the
you're just kind of smoothing out the rough top, right?
Yeah, that's what I think. What's happening?
Yeah.
So if you work, that's what I think, and that's what the Shiba does as well. Like both sides a little bit low grit, and just one side on the high grit, right?
Have you ever seen those bread knives? They're called like scalped, where it's not like a really aggressive tooth. It's not like a McDonald's arch. It's a little more of like a wave.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it makes me think of a little bit.
I think it's like more like Mount Fuji. It's like
right. Okay, cool. Good question.
I think people may use those like fancy microscopes and see and
Yeah, I'm curious. I think someday we should just sharpen a knife on 1000 grit, sharpen a knife on 8000 grit, and sharpen a knife half and half, and just see what we think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's that?
That's the opinion.
Yeah, it's at the end of the day, just do what makes you happy, and if people on the internet are mean to you, then don't listen to them. We got a good one here from James Wang. Says, I have a question. Good. That's why we're here today, James. Lots of swords and hunting knives are made using watetsu or rentetsu as cladding. You're gonna have to explain that to me because I forget. Why aren't these steels being used on kitchen knives? Really love the flows on these claddings.
Well, one, it's simple reason. It's more expensive. Especially rentetsu. Rentetsu is a wrought iron. Wrought iron is the one of those. It's the iron that's made with the this pelling. It's a ren in Japanese is to actually to mix in the paddle. It's a so they like mix this like this. The sword like hunting knife makers, and also don't forget the kiridashi makers. Also the plane makers. They like to use watetsu or rentetsu. Watetsu in Japanese means the Japanese steel. It's very low in iron, low in carbon.
Yeah.
Both watetsu and rentetsu are very. We call it the very responsive steel to sharpen.
Mm.
You can feel how it's being ground on the knives. So it's popular on those guys. Not so much popular on the kitchen knives. One, again, it's really expensive. Two, rentetsu is again, it's very scarce. They don't make them anymore, so you have to find those from the old rails and stuff like that.
Yeah, right.
What it's also is the rare because it's still used in the in Sanjo where the Masashi-san's from. They use that to make a nail, traditional Japanese nail for peoples, but it's still scarce, right?
So similar to why you wouldn't see like Sheffield steel, unless you're repurposing it, you're not going to have easy access to it.
Exactly, and also those rentetsu and watetsu, they have to do a cladding in house, and it takes just time.
Yeah, I mean, not a ton of blacksmiths clad in house, right?
Yeah,
it's a totally different process and skill.
Yeah, where the still the cladding or the forge welding in house is really popular thing among the plane makers. And sword makers, of course, they have to do that, right? That's you have to actually fold a few times to get nice even structure as well. So it's not really popular for that reason.
Yeah, that makes sense. Damon Spector says, if we stump Naoto, does he have to drink sharpening water tea?
No,
I think Naoto's too valuable to be put at risk like that. Mike can drink some sharpening water coffee. We can take that risk, but getting Naoto insured is very expensive. It's kind of like when they insure Tom Cruise to do a stunt. It's really, really expensive. Naoto's very similar in that situation. We had a few other questions in the chat. Well, Damon also said in North America, because you were talking about making sushi, in North America, you can perform heart surgery with less years of training than the guy who makes high-quality sushi rice. Yeah. Another good one about Japanese food. Don't know if you'll know this or not. Anthony Barca said, Naoto, what is unagi sauce made of? Why is it the best thing ever?
Unagi sauce is actually very simple. It's very simple. They are a mixture of soy sauce, mirin, which is this rice seasoning. It's super sweet, made from the sake, and sake, sugar. Basic 4 ingredients. I often though use the fish bone that I grilled in the toast, and I add it so that it gives you a little bit of flavor of grilling and that the flavor into it.
Extra boost of umami.
Yeah, and then you cook it until it gets like nice and thick, right? Like sugar thickens the sauce.
Right. Yeah, naturally.
So it's cool. Well, unagi itself is pretty good, right?
Yeah.
It's like teriyaki sauce.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I wish we could catch eel around here. I would very much enjoy that.
But the teriyaki sauce is also very simple: soy sauce and a mirin mixture. Traditionally, it's 1 by 1. I usually add a tiny bit of brown sugar in to get a little bit more sweetness to it. But
yeah. Okay. Cool. This guy Kevin, I think his name's Kevin Kent.
Mm-hmm.
He said, ask him if using coke in the forging process increases the carbon levels of the steel over using gas.
The not so much on the forging process. It's more on the heat treatment process when people use the not the cokes, not the gas. Heat treatment, where the quenching, when the blacksmith uses so-called the pine charcoals,
Yep.
that will prevent it prevents from decarbonation.
Yep.
The carbon will stay in the steel. Also, they add tiny bit of carbon on the outside of steel as well. So the not so much during the forging. It's when they try to quench them, try to harden them. Those who uses the pine charcoal for quenching is a Fujara-san.
Yep.
Also, the Tanaka-san from the Yoshikazu Tanaka-san from Sakai. Also, the Doi-san uses the pine charcoals for the quenching.
Mm-hmm.
So some other, like say, Nakagawa-san from Sakai uses pine charcoals, and I think Togashi-san now uses that as well.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, I got a couple more about steel and steel makeup. So I wanna stay on this topic for a little while. Damon Spector on our Discord said sulfur is a contaminant, and I think he was trolling a little bit, but I think this is honestly, I thought it was an interesting question. Said sulfur is a contaminant, and steel absorbs sulfur. So does cutting onions slowly poison your knife with sulfur?
I don't know how much it is sulfuric, but I don't think so. The if it's like, it depends on what form of iron or steel is there. I think, say, most for steel to be stable. You know what forms is most stable for steel?
What's that?
Iron. If you look at its oxidized form, is the most stable form of iron. That's
right,
why
it's not reacting anymore.
Yeah, it's like red.
Right. Yeah. There's no, like, speaking of like electrons binding to stuff, there's no more available electrons.
So and also this not like, once it becomes a martensite, I think it's pretty stable. Well, it's not that stable because it still rusts.
Because it can rust, yeah. But it's more stable than like an unhardened steel.
Yeah, I think that's what I think. I haven't done much, say, because oxygen, even when it rusts, the oxygen basically it's a chemical bound, right? The iron and oxygen bound together to become a iron oxide. Yep. To become a rust or patina, both are iron oxide. Depends on how much I guess the oxygen is bound to the bind to actually iron. Yes, the sulfur is a contaminant.
Yep.
But I don't think they will get into the steel so that it will, because what makes steel, what sulfur does for the steel is it will make the steel more fragile. It's more brittle.
Right.
So I don't think they will be actually incorporated as you use them. Having said that, if you go to the hot springs, if you leave that, like the knife, carbon steel knife, like in the there's whatchamacallit in Banff, there's the little facility where
or radium.
Right, yeah, the hot springs, that will probably decay. But onion, probably not.
Probably not a big deal.
Yeah.
All right. It was a fun, weird question, so I thought I'd ask it. Sticking with steel and forging for a couple more questions. Sven said or asked, I've seen some Japanese tool makers, and this would include the Moritakas when they do our Ishime finish. Seen some Japanese tool makers cold hammer the steel at the end of the smithing process. Is this also done on knives? And if so, which steels would work best with this process?
The so-called cold forging or Reikantanzo, it's done at most places for
Really?
kitchen as well. Yeah, the Moritaka-san Ishime, they do it for two reasons. One is to like say when it's you see the nashiji finish. When it's just forged, you see the very rough finish on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
Right? What they do is that they take the rough finish knife to the so-called cold forging. So put in the machine and the spring in front of the spring hammer, and they just balance it to even the finishes out.
Yep.
As well as the it kind of tightens in Japanese people often they call it's hari. It's the springiness. It adds a little bit more springiness to the outside, so it doesn't bend as easy.
Mm-hmm.
There was a really interesting topic that I was as I was editing a Masashi-san's interview. He'd mentioned that the even very low carbon steel, if you heat treat them right and if you hammer them, very low carbon steel can have the nice so-called tension on the outside so that it doesn't bend. Like say there are those. He was talking about traditional Japanese nails, and Japanese nails, they're very low carbon, but when those nails are be hammered into the building, right? And when they are soft, they don't want to get in straight, right? So
So hardness is necessary in that case.
It's actually the tension that holding the that up. So the cold forging is pretty popular. Most people do that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right on. Okay, so let's see. We got some good chat going on. People are memeing about the Discord. This is a good one from Blank.
Yeah.
This is something that I thought was pretty interesting. It's advanced, but it's maybe not too advanced. And it's good for people that want to learn about steel. So what is plastic deformation and elastic deformation in steel?
I'm not sure about the terms. See, I stumbled. If it were in Japanese, I may have known, because most of my sources is in Japanese, and often I don't translate them to the English.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like there'll be. So maybe that can be the question: is you can tell us I'll give you the answers, and you can tell us the Japanese terms for them, or see if you know the Japanese terms for them. So elastic deformation is the ability for steel to bend back after the force is applied, like an elastic band. Like you stretch it and then it comes back.
Yeah.
So how do you say that in Japanese?
Some call it flexibility, right? So and I believe plastic deformation is probably when it's bent, it snaps, maybe. So it's there are a few things that that comes in play. I not just learned, but as in an interview with Masashi-san there, what he tries to do is he tries to hammer the outside steel as well into a little more springy or elastic formation, so that when you apply enough pressure, it kind of gives a little bit more give.
Yep.
But comes back where it is.
Yep.
Right. So it's where the softer steel, if it's the outside, it's not as really nice tension. It kind of keep the bend is there.
Right.
Often that happens with the roller forged knives. They don't have enough outside tension, so that when it's bent, it kind of keeps that mark. Where it's hand forged or hammer forged ones, don't do that as much.
Yeah.
Depends on how much carbon, how hard that the core steel is. I've seen his secret, Masashi-san's secret knife the other day. It's like 1.2 millimeters thick.
Yeah, you're telling me about that.
1.2 millimeter thick, about 150 millimeter skinning blade or the filleting blade.
Yeah.
Forged weld like 3 different type of steel and like did the this folding, and it was like he bends 90 degrees and it comes back straight.
Is he going to sell that to someone?
I think he made it for the request, and he had another one that's kicking around, I think.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, it was like that was the casual conversation. Hey, Masashi-san, you think the hand for because there are a lot of flexible knives around, right, for fish filleting in North America.
Yeah, they're very popular, but at least we don't see a lot of them coming out from Japan.
No, and I casually asked like those knives are really popular. You think you can make it hand forged? He's like this, and he sends a picture like, yeah,
no big deal.
Yeah.
So that was elastic deformation. Plastic deformation is just the opposite. It's the tendency of the steel to stay bent after a force is applied.
Yeah, I think the few things plays a role, especially if all this, like, everything's the same. Say if you have the one knife, well, 2 knives that's made with the exact same steel, exact same outer layer steel or the cladding steel, what makes a difference that the hammer forging will make the outside steel also have nice tension so that it doesn't stay bent.
Yeah.
Where the oftentimes roller forged one can have that little bit of weaker cladding.
Because there's less tension in the steel?
Yeah, exactly. It's not.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. So that's part of the problem that causes some single bevels to warp over time. There's just more tension in the hard steel.
It's really different.
Really?
Some difference as well as it's just really natural thing. The martensite, when the steel is from the ferrite to the austenite to martensite. From austenite to martensite, the volume of steel increases. But this martensite here will decrease in the volume over time.
Right.
So that causes, and also there are a lot of multiple factors why the single bevel knives bent, because not all this austenite becomes a martensite at the same heat treating.
Right.
Some of the leftover austenite,
yeah,
sometimes over time gradually becomes martensite, and this transformation, as I said, it will actually have that little volume change.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, blank. Those are some great questions. I know I've got a couple others from you that hopefully we'll get to, but they really went above and beyond trying to come up with tough questions. I knew my questions were tough. I'll admit I had to do some research to get the answers straight, but I appreciate going the extra mile.
Thank you.
A for effort.
Those steel questions are really hard.
Yeah. Those I figured would be the toughest ones.
Yeah.
And said, I think plastic deformation, which is the more permanent kind, could come into play with cold forging, maybe?
The cold forging will add the tension on the outside. So it's given more elastic deformation.
Oh, okay.
It adds the tension on the outside.
Very cold.
Yeah. That's why Noritaka Ishime, it doesn't bend as easy.
Yeah.
Because they cold forge and they make those hammer patterns. I often explain as that it has a tension as well as the it's almost like if you think about it, aluminum foil, if it's just like sheet, it's weak. If you just squish, it becomes hard.
Yeah.
So it's like Ishime is like squished aluminum foil on the outside.
Right.
So it's like hard.
Huh. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Craig had another food question, which I think they're fun. They help break up the the steel stuff. What does Naoto think of Moshio salt? I
Yeah.
have some, and I haven't tasted anything like it before. Is it a big deal in Japan, or is there a bunch of other similar quality salts there?
Moshio. So for those of you who don't know what the moshio is this type of salt that they harvested from like some kelp or the seaweed. So what they do is they harvest the seaweed and let it dry outside, and shake off salt. Right. So what happens is that they add a little bit more like kelp or umami flavor with the salt.
Oh, okay. Well, and isn't there natural MSG that occurs in seaweed?
Yeah.
So it would, and salt and MSG. Like I watched this really cool YouTube video a while ago where this guy basically put salt in water, MSG in water, and then salt and MSG in water, and kind of tasted all of them along with plain water as a baseline. And he said that the salt and the MSG really they play off each other really well.
Yeah. Like often, when you make a broth, right? I don't have that sensitive palate to taste just a umami.
Yeah.
But I just add the pinch of salt and taste it, right?
Yeah.
And
it immediately comes to life. Like I'm the same way. Like I have an okay palate, but I'll taste chicken broth and I'll be like, this is fine. It's whatever. And then you throw a tiny bit of salt in it, it's just immediately like explodes with flavor.
Yeah, some people do have the great palate to actually taste all the umami flavor though, without that I don't have, but yeah. So moshio is like that, right? So it adds the extra umami flavors. It just gives you the little bit more depth, just the self. Similar salt, not so much. There are a lot of like sea salts in Japan. As you may know, Japan is surrounded by the ocean.
There's a little bit of water around Japan.
Yeah. One salt that I really like is this salt from the island of Miyako in Okinawa. And what it is this powder sugar, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very fine
for like icing sugar.
Yeah, icing sugar.
Yeah.
Have you seen the powder salt?
I've seen like sea salt from the health food store, but it's still grittier than that. No, I guess I haven't.
Super, super fine. So there is a salt called the yukishio, or they call it the snow salt, but it's super fine.
Yeah.
Like, it's super fine. It crumbles very easy. Again, it does like feel like it's the icing sugar.
Right.
That is great, because what I do with that is that I take a little bit and I smother it on top of the meat.
Right.
It saturates very evenly into the.
Oh, that sounds really good.
It's very, very nicely. So that's one of the salt that I really, really like from Japan as well. It's specifically from the island. I don't know how they make them, but they made kind of big deal out of it, and so that it became super popular.
Huh.
I think it's called the snow salt.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm tempted to try making it in my Vitamix, but I feel like it won't be the same.
Yeah. Or there's yakijiyo as well. There's like roasted salt in Japan.
Huh. Interesting.
You just roast them. Yeah. I know.
Very cool.
A lot of things.
Yeah. Here's a good one. Anthony Barker said, I've heard that Hitachi white steel was developed by analyzing the composition of high-quality blades made from tamahagane. Is this true? If so, it's pretty cool.
I think it's I think it's true. What I have read is that the white steel is try to mimic, or they try to make the industrial version of tamahagane. So the very less impurities, and about same amount of carbon in it.
Okay, cool.
So it's kind of true, I think. Their aim is to recreate the tamahagane.
So not the same, but a lot of similar properties.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Damon Spector says, I come here on Friday for knives and steel, but I stay for Hawaiian shirts. Well, David, make some suggestions in the comments of some new shirts I should pick up. Maybe your recommended colors, because I just ripped 4 of my Hawaiian shirts last week, and I'm now very low. My collection needs some help, so let me know what I should get. James, who always has the good question, says, Naoto, I have a knife coming in with a number 10 stamp on the tang. Just wondering if you know what blacksmith made it. I only know number 12 is Tatsuo Ikeda, and number 38 is Togashi Kenji.
Those numbers represents the in Sakai. So there is a system or the certification called traditional craftsman, right? The
the Dento Kogeshi.
Dento Kogeshi.
Yeah.
In Sakai, they are numbered from the first ones to. I know 38 is Togashi-san. If that 12 is Tatsuo-san, it's the 10. Who would that be in Sakai? So Tatsuo Ikeda-san is the older brother of Yoshikazu Ikeda-san. We did have one knife from Tatsuo-san before. But this is how it goes often, especially in Sakai. If you want to be a traditional craftsman in Sakai, you have to wait until your senior member of your cooperative becomes a traditional craftsman. If you start like late and try to become one before the the older guys, you can't. You have to let those people.
Really?
Yeah. It just.
Oh, that's frustrating. I get it. I get the reason, but that could be really frustrating.
That's not only skills, right? It just really certifies you that you have enough skills. It doesn't really tell you that you are the greatest.
Sure.
What I can tell you is that the number 10 is going to be older than Ikeda-san. So 10th.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Right. So in numeric order.
Yeah. Numeric order. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. So going back to steel for a minute here, Blank just had not a question, but just some interesting comments. Doing some research, they were talking about how they found that carbide-rich steels can have super hard carbides, but still only a Rockwell of 60. And the theory was that the matrix of the steel is what determines the hardness of the steel, at least for the Rockwell test. The carbides act like marbles suspended in Play-Doh, which I thought was good. We use the analogy of chocolate chip cookies quite often.
Yeah, exactly. So the absolutely right. So
cool.
Even the carbides, there is a steel carbides. It's called cementite, right? So they are much harder. Rockwell of 70, like the carbide itself is quite hard, but the matrix itself doesn't have to be as hard.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, definitely. That's yeah.
And James is now extra excited to get that knife based on what you said.
It is older than that's I know how it works, how the numbering works.
Oh, I didn't know that was a thing. That's super cool.
It only happens in Sakai though.
Okay.
It only happens in Sakai. They're the only ones who actually engrave with the Kogeshi stamp with their numbers.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'd be surprised if that was a countrywide thing. That would be a lot of work to.
Yeah. I mean here's the funny thing about the Dento Kogeshi certificate or the Dento Kogeshi. If you say, for example, were born, say if you are blacksmithing in the Moritaka-san, can they be certified as the traditional craftsman? No, they can't.
Huh? Why?
It has to be a place where it's the whatever craft is famous for first. So they have to.
Oh, I see.
That's where it's like really famous.
And so where they are isn't famous for like Hocho, for example.
Yeah. So they're for Hocho, Dento Kogeshi, and also they those people have to be a part of the cooperative or some sort of the union.
Right.
If you're a lone wolf like a massage stand, they'll never be able to get that certificate or certified. So it's it's like so it does not only shows the skills, but also so it's great. It's great that the great certificate for especially younger blacksmith nowadays. Like say Ikeda-san was certified the other day to give him like really nice good credential, right?
Yep.
You have to see that's not with not having it does not tell you much about it.
It's like a Michelin star. It's like there's a lot of really incredible restaurants that have Michelin stars, and there's a lot of really incredible restaurants that don't have any Michelin stars and never will.
Well, I mean, because of the city, right? Michelin guide is a tourist guide.
Yeah.
So your city has to be chosen to be on the Michelin guide.
Yeah.
Well, my city is actually my prefecture will be on the next issue of the Michelin guide. Osaka, Kyoto, and my prefecture, Wakayama.
That's exciting.
I'm excited.
Yeah, that's very cool. Here's one from Gary Horn. Says, Naoto, what is the name of that small ski town at the base of Mount Fuji coming from Atsugi? That's a good tough question.
Ski town from Atsugi. Atsugi in Kanagawa. Ski town. I do ski. I usually go to Nagano. I usually go to Hokkaido. Base of Mount Fuji. Fujimi?
Are you just making up? I can't tell. Are you making up words now, or are you?
Well, there are cities called Fujimi and
right.
Yeah, around that Mount Fuji area. Because
well, Gary, let us know in the comments if you stumped Naoto or not. That's a tough one.
Coming from Atsugi, because Atsugi is in this base. It's famous for a U.S. Navy base, and that's in the coast of the Kanagawa, and you have to go up north a bit. Interesting. I'm not 100% sure actually.
Been there. Gary was there in the early 70s. That must have been a fun time.
What happened in a lot of those ski hills, especially in 2010s, is that in Japan, we had a ski like trend. Ski was this super trendy thing in late 80s and early 90s when I started skiing. Super trendy. In order to get on the chair lift, sometimes you had to wait like an hour to get on the chair lift. I remember it was so trendy. Like every young, I was like only 6 when I started that, but every young adults, 20s and 20, those people love to go to those skills because of the movie, like super trendy movie.
Right.
So the ski hills were super, there are so many ski hills around.
Yeah.
And it's like the ski bubble kind of popped.
Yeah.
There aren't as many skiers or the snowboarders. So there are a lot of ski hills actually closing these days.
Oh, that's too bad.
Especially the small ones, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if they're still there or not.
Yeah. Well, Gary said, I can't remember that far back. Doesn't know the name of the town. It was the 70s. Like, how would you remember anything?
Also, the town may not exist anymore because in early 2000 we had a lot of assimilations and joint of cities and stuff like that. So there are a lot of like
conglomeration of
of the cities and towns, and that was encouraged, and government paid for it and stuff, right?
Interesting. Yeah, I mean that makes sense. Kind of like Greater Vancouver, or
it's like save some taxes. You don't that many city councils to,
Yeah, right.
sometimes, right?
So one of our buddies on Instagram. So we had a few Instagram questions that I'll get to. One of them was from Sharp Rectangle, who is always commenting our posts with the Nakiri love. They're all about the Nakiri knives, the rectangle knives. And so they had a good question. What's a methodical way of grinding in? It's convenient you're sharpening a Nakiri today. What's a methodical way of grinding in an uneven ura or an ura with rust?
Few ways. So for those of you who don't know what the ura is, ura basically means a back, right? Back of the single bevels, and back of the single bevels is very interestingly shaped. Japanese knives on the back end here is not just the flat, because single bevel they have the bevel right here. I can probably show it on this camera here.
Let me pop that up there.
One bevel right here. Backside looks pretty flat, but it actually has a little concave. The cave in. Those constructions here is the some call it nimai, or 2 layers. So it's got a softer steel covering on top of the hard steel on the back. What that means is the backside is all hard steel. So what he's asking is that because the backside is all this hard steel, and that eventually becomes the end. I don't mind. Grass is bad. So that's kind of the setup, right? So what I will do is the best way. Oh, well, like if you have the wheel like this. Sorry, this is the easiest. What I do is put the.
Come on. There we go.
Like this, and to make a little concave in the back.
Right.
Right? If you don't, there are a few ways that you could do. If you're only doing everything by hand, what you could do is the few things. You can have a small, very coarse finger stone and work way like this. Or you can make make your stone more rounded, like this. Pretend that you have the hand stone, but you chew your stone into round shape.
Yeah, okay.
So you can work the back a little bit more. Okay.
Okay, cool.
And the uraoshi is definitely you do it with the very flat stone like this.
So I've got a follow-up question from a different person on Instagram from Cook's Edge. Says, what is a common radius for grinding the ura on a single bevel?
It really depends on who you ask. So for example, when I do this, because this radius is too small, so I actually roll a little bit to get a little bit more bigger.
Yeah.
It really depends. So there isn't like real answer, I guess, right? Like radius of a meter, 2 meters. I don't have that answer, right? But it depends on who makes it too. For example, there are schools. So when I was talking to Masashi-san, I like to talk to Masashi-san about.
Yeah, you guys just chat. You're pals.
When I talked to Masashi-san, his answer was, if the ura, the back concave, is as shallow, he likes to have it as shallow as possible.
Like as close to flat as possible.
Yeah, exactly.
Without being actually flat.
Exactly.
Huh.
That shows the skill, and I think he's all about skill. Right?
He likes to show off a little bit.
Yeah. So he shows the skills, and he actually explained in the interview. He thinks the less of the grinding is done is better. The knife is. So as he
sure.
hammers the backside. And when I talked to a who is it, the Masashi Fujiwara-san, the sharpener in the Mie prefecture, he actually liked to have a much bigger concavity,
like really deep,
a little bit more deeper.
Yeah.
Reason is that I think he is thinking a little bit more practicality. When you are cutting sashimi with the big concavity on the outside or on the back, will create much bigger air pockets.
Right. Yeah.
The food glides much nicer, or the knife glides into the food much nicer.
Yeah.
So depends on school, depends on what you like your tool to be. That kind of stuff. So there isn't no specific like right away answer. Some say for example the Sakai guys, they have this stump that they hammer in and they make the carve into as well.
Right. Cool.
Yeah.
So we're not sure about the radius, but there's a lot of different ways that folks go about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a good one from Damon Spector. This was I put a post up in the Discord asking what people thought products we should sell, because we're always looking to add to our selection, but also just improve it and refine it, looking for trends and new things in the world, and we appreciate all the suggestions. So Damon had a great suggestion saying we should get some knife blanks from Ikeda-san, and then Naoto could bevel them and sharpen them. And we could have like a collaboration between Ikeda-san and Naoto and have a limited edition knife line. I love that idea. It's a lot of work for you.
A lot of work.
Why I like it.
So,
I was asking when we're getting the blanks.
I have to buy like at least 100 to test it out too, though.
Right.
I can like resharpening and creating this, making a knife is a little bit of different things, right? Yeah. So quite a bit of different. We are the retailer and also the sharpener after that, right? It's like, I don't know if anyone who watches right now follows this Togiya Sukehachi on Instagram. Mm-hmm. He often complains in Japanese quite a bit, like he's such a character. I would like to actually see him in person like when I'm back in Japan sometimes. But he's in a character. He's like, whoever sharpened this, he's a crap. Working his ass off because he's this guy brought this knife to this fake sharpener and done such bad job. I'm that kind of stuff. But he makes a big difference between resharpening and the creating knives. He's like, that job was really like it's more like a hatsukeshi or the sharp like sharpener to make knives work than the resharpening job.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to learn a lot more.
Yeah, that's a totally different. Well, I feel like ideally you'd want one of those big wheels as opposed to, like, that wheel you have there is nice, but it's
it goes fast, but it's you will need the bigger wheels.
You just got to convince Kevin to let Naoto spend like a week in Japan just sharpening knives, and then which I feel like could be good research for you. But
I know few places that allow me to actually do that'd be great.
Yeah. I got a couple rapid fire ones for you from blank on Discord. Says okay, so number one, what was the first brand of Japanese water stones to hit the market? I don't know if they mean North American market or the market in general.
Synthetic, hey?
That's I feel like you could clarify this question somewhat, because if we're talking about natural stones versus synthetic, that's a pretty big difference in centuries.
Because the natural stones been around for quite a while. Synthetic ones, there are a few big companies like Naniwa Kenma has been around for quite a while. King Toishi has been around for a little while as well.
So we're talking synthetic stones.
Yeah.
Like, would Nanaboa be one of the first, or was there companies established before them?
No, it was like after the war, I think.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, that's when a lot of people got kind of set up to
Yeah.
do larger production, right? Was in the late 40s and early 50s.
King, maybe King Toichi. Imanishi-san's family has been owning the mountain for natural stones, but they are not necessarily the producers. They do kind of ask the other producers to make stones for them as well. I know the Shopton's super new guys. I wonder
There is.
what that is.
That's a tough one.
Right?
So we got a follow up to that then, which is in a similar vein. Who made the first diamond plates? It's another tough one. I don't know if anybody knows this one.
Maybe DMT. Maybe DMT makes a pretty good diamond stones.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that we carry is like Atoma, and we used to carry DMT as well. I know the Naniwa makes the diamond stone that's diamonds actually mixed in it.
Right.
It's different though.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Interesting.
Good food for thought.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. So DMT, they said they came out in the 70s, so they think DMT.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Fighting Yusuk was watching one of Dustin, the handle maker that we're friends with, one of Dustin's new videos today, and he mentioned that some folks are saying there's an Aogami super shortage, but apparently he disagreed. Have you guys heard anything like that?
I have not actually heard anything about that. It could make sense. There is a lot of steel shortage in the world.
Yeah. There's been some increases in axe prices lately because of wood and steel shortage and all the basically everything required to make an axe is very expensive right now.
Yeah, everything's become like it's all transportation's very hard these days. A lot of ships are not really on schedule,
lumber mills are like maxed out.
Yeah. So lumber prices are just quadrupled from last year or something like that, right?
Ugh. It's horrendous.
Yeah.
It's awful. Hopefully they go down soon.
But I haven't heard much about them yet. But maybe.
Yeah. Okay, we got 3 or 4 more questions that were asked previous to the show. In the meantime, if you folks have any more questions, we'll be around for another 10-15 minutes. But let's bang through the rest of these questions that we had asked beforehand because we got some good ones here. I really like this one. I don't feel like this is a stump you question. This is just like a great question that I think will be helpful to a lot of people. When encouraging a new knife sharpener who may be overwhelmed by all the information and various considerations that can be difficult to communicate on the internet, what do you consider the 3 most crucial aspects of sharpening for them to try to focus on? Angle, type of stone, pressure, deburring, etc.
I think the first thing is really to focus on the angle. You want to practice that or sharpening at the same. You can actually have another camera ready. First thing really definitely you want to learn is how to hold the angle and make your angle steady as you're doing it. Because you progress your stone from the one stone to another, right? The coarse to fine, like medium to fine. And when you change the angle, especially when you lower the angle as you go up on the grits, you'd be basically, polishing up your side of your knife without really sharpening it. So that's the first focus.
Right.
Yeah. If you watch our video on how to sharpen knives, we use the technique setting up the angle and tell you how to hold steady the angle, right? Like this, right? With the little thimble.
Yep.
That is something you want to focus on. Once you get the if you handle that, then you can change the angle whatever you want, right? Like how I sharpen often at this advanced sharpening thing is that I often change the angle from the tip to the heel, right? I sharpen.
Yeah. You alter it for the purposes, kind of thing.
Yeah. So I do that. But if your hands are not steady to keep the same angle as you're sharpening, that's the first thing. That's the first thing. Yeah.
Learning to like lock those wrists and become a robot, basically.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the first thing. Second is to keep your stone true.
Yep.
That's really definitely first two things you want to do. Once you get that, then you start thinking about other stuff.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, this is another one from Sven Finn on Discord. Naoto, what are your thoughts on coreless Damascus knives? And if you could make your own, what combination of steels would you use?
Yeah, I've used only a few coreless Damascus, and not right now the coreless Damascus that is available in the market as a more widely available is the this Takefu Special Steels, a VG2 and VG10. It is like starting to become very popular, and I think it's good. It's fine. Well, if I were to own one, I am very interested in the Shoichi Hashimoto's coreless yet so coreless. His knives are great. He uses, I think, white number 1 and blue number 1 forged weld and fold it together, make it the core steel, and he uses the softer steel, also 2 different type forged welds, and fold it together makes the outer layer steel. I'll be interested in that. The regular coreless steel is great. Theoretically speaking, for those of you who don't really know what the coreless steel and what they can do, what they may do is that so coreless Damascus basically means that they are made out of 2 different types of steel, layer them together. It's like, relatively mild, hard, mild, hard, mild, hard, mild, hard. And as it gets to the edge there, the edge consists of hard and softer steel, sort of alternating each other. And as you use them on the cutting board, the alternation, the softer steel wears down a bit faster than that hard steel. That will cause that edge to have the almost like infinite serrated edge almost.
Right. Yeah, because that theory makes sense in my brain. It seems like definitely a possible benefit. The sharp, like, becoming dull is not only just the wear though, right? Because that is only prevents it works as the wear resistance. If you have hit something hard, cutting onto the cutting board doesn't work at the same thing. If that thing cuts the paper, that may work because it's the abrasive resistance and in reality, you're cutting on the cutting board. You're cutting on the wood. Right.
It's not just
you're not just cutting paper midair when you're cooking.
Yeah.
Contrary to popular belief.
So it may, and they've done test. This paper test, it's called Honda style edge retention test. They basically put the blade like this and has a machine, stack of paper, and they and see how many paper they cut.
Huh.
They work a little bit better. They proved that in that Honda style test, it works better. But
Yep.
it's from there. Again, Honda style test does have this like flaw because again, it's just cutting the paper like this.
Yeah, it's not actual use in a kitchen. You're not scraping the blade sideways and doing stupid shit with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that makes sense.
it does tell you one thing, but it does not tell you everything.
It's not a full picture. Yeah. Okay, we got a couple more, and then I think we're done. This is the last one from blank. Last of the really tough questions. What kind of stones are generally mined from the Aka pin strata?
Is there no Akapin? Akapin?
Here, we'll pop it up here.
Yeah. Akapin?
That's how it was spelled.
There's Gokudo. I have the book from the Imanishi-san, all written in Japanese, saying it's all about those things. Akapin. And usually they have the strata name on it.
Right, yeah.
They have a Suita, Gokudo, like Karasu and stuff like that on there.
So they're thinking that they're, in theory, supposedly they're red in color.
Yeah, but red, from what I can say, is that there aren't much red in the stratas. I'm just picturing some of the strata and in Kyoto, some mountains.
Yeah, apparently there's sandstone. I don't know if that helps at all.
Oh. Sandstones. No, I there's like softer ones are like a say Amakusa or it's a little bit more orangey, a little bit more sandish stones. Amakusa is from this area in Kumamoto. Softer sandstones, say for example, Omurato and something like Omurato could be a little bit more softer as well. There's the ones that's from a Shirahama that's a little bit more softer sandstones as well. Maybe what you call it, the Amakusa, maybe. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Another tough one. Blank's got a lot of good tough questions.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the last question of the night. Naoto, you've done very well, I think, and the viewers had some excellent questions. So thank you for everybody that tuned in and brought your questions and submitted them ahead of time. This is the last one from someone on Instagram, from Sheffield Sharpening Shed, who I think is also on our Discord.
Yeah.
Asked this question on Instagram, and I feel like this is a good way to round it out because this is a very meta question. It'll leave you thinking all weekend long, and you can smoke some weed and think about this. Does a knife actually cut food, or does it just pry it apart?
That's actually a really good question. I think, well, then we have to kind of define what the prying, what's the difference between the prying and the cutting. You have to actually, this one, you have to define what the cutting is, right? Yeah, like this is something that requires definition, because what happens is that the food or anything is bonded together with the like cells or
the cells are kind of stuck to each other.
Yeah, and as you are sharpening it, all the pressure that you're adding, like the force that you're putting with your hand, will be concentrated into this edge there, right? And thinner that is will be concentrated more.
Yeah.
The force or the power will definitely play a little bit for sure, right? But by sliding it, you're definitely cutting into it. Actually, I think it's actually cutting the food. For example, especially say it's gross, but when you cut yourself,
Yeah.
well, if you push in hard enough, it cuts, right?
Right.
But sliding makes these little teeth to cut it open the food. So I think so. First cut, by sliding it, it cuts. And so the last edge is really cutting.
Right.
Side of knife is prying.
So it's a bit of both. Like you're cutting first. It's like chicken before the egg. Like you're cutting first, and then the rest of the knife is doing the rest of the work to push things apart.
Yeah, push them apart. Yeah, here. Yeah.
That's a good answer. I like that.
Here.
Cool.
So still edge, like always when it's touching the food, it still cuts in. Yeah.
That's very good. I like that. Well, good work.
Thank
Those
you.
are some very thoughtful answers, which is why that's what we're always here for on Fridays, is to kind of delve deep and think about the more technical aspects of knives and sharpening and steel, and have these kinds of conversations. This is why I like it. Hopefully everybody else does too. Well, do you have anything else to close out with?
I guess, for those people who's watching, the just a little bit of a reminder, we'll have some super cool interviews coming up. It's not going to be a live. Live interviews are fantastic, but sometimes those craftsmen are a little too shy to be on the in front of camera doing all the live, back and forth. And also that takes a lot of time. I was actually we did an interview with Masashi Yamamoto-san. It was 2 hours long. It was great conversation. It was great interaction with the viewers like yourselves.
Yeah.
But we had a little bit of it's like, basically me talking 70% of the time, but where you guys, you want to listen to Masashi-san talk. So what we did is that I actually edited it and put the subtitles on the Masashi-san's interview, and it became from 2 hours to 20 minutes.
Nice.
It's like, all the stumbles, like kind of stuff's being cut. So it's really, really great. So hopefully
it's a little easier for everyone, because if you didn't know this, Japan and Canada are on 2 very different time zones. It's very awkward to find times that work for everybody.
Yeah. So hopefully that's going to work really well. And we have this idea as well. So not revealed, not yet, but that interview, we may just dub it. Yeah. I think what should be dubbed is my part is dubbed by Francis, and the Masashi-san part dubbed by Owen. See that Owen's voice? Like, I'll listen.
Why can't you dub your own part? You do speak English. No? Okay.
You know what? I'll love Owen, dub Masashi-san. I can listen to him like all day.
Yeah, that'd be very flattering. I like that.
Yeah. So, but we're going to release that the subtitle version first and see what happens. Yeah. So we are going to. So having said that, I am going to have interview with this upcoming young and up and coming young 3 blacksmith on the same screen, namely Manaka-san, Miyazaki-san, and Yoshizawa-san from Nigara Hamono. 3 young up-and-coming blacksmiths, and all of them are with my age group. So
yeah, they're really like kind of like just getting started, right?
Yeah. So I'd like to have them all together and have a little bit more like a Japanese game show style, where I ask them to prepare with the little big Sharpie with the board and write the answer and show it to us, kind of stuff. So I am planning on doing that, and hopefully that'll be shown. That'll be ready by the mid-July. Also, I am interviewing a sharpener from Hado Sekai, Mariyama-san. He looks really, really cool. He wears the weird T-shirt every single day.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we should send the cream shirt to him.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Like it, yeah. Anyway, so I'll have the interview, one-on-one interview with him, record it, chopped, and subtitles.
And that is going to be for Small Makers Month, which is July 12th to August 8th. It's it's just kind of like a 4-week period where we just get to talk about these really cool blacksmiths, do some interviews, some videos, some blogs on the website, and obviously bring in a lot of really cool knives that we don't normally get to carry. I'm pretty excited for it.
Absolutely. So hopefully, you guys stay tuned on that. I am going to work hard, have them ready, and hopefully, I enjoy doing this. So hopefully you guys will as well once they are done and ready.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch them. It'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And Fighting U6 says, happy Father's Day to all the USA dads this weekend. Hey, it's also Father's Day in Canada.
Yes.
On June 20th. If you need some last minute gifts, you can always drop by your local Knifewear or kind of Inglewood shop or grab a gift card online. Something I probably should have mentioned at the top of the episode. But happy Father's Day to any dads out there or wannabe dads. Enjoy your weekend.
Absolutely.
Mow the lawn, have a beer, enjoy your time.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody, and thanks for answering all these awesome questions today, Naoto.
No, it was good. It was hard.
Yeah, there's some challenging ones in there.
My heart's pounding right now.
No, you did awesome, man. Yeah. All right. Well, happy Friday, everyone. Have an awesome weekend.
Happy Friday, everyone.
And we'll see you next week on Naoto's Nerdy Power Hour. Take it easy.